Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the return of Friday Night Ghost Stories. I am so happy that you are willing to spend some time with me tonight on this Friday evening and listen to a very short tale, but I think it's a bit of a creepy tale that, especially if you are a history buff, you'll appreciate. And it's been quite a while since I've done one of these. I think it was prior to Halloween. I didn't even do one near Halloween. So Um, it must have been beginning of October that I did my last ghost story. So took a little hiatus, but I came across a story that I thought I liked and I wanted to tell. So I said, let's put one on the calendar and let's get back to this. So before I get started, of course, I would like to individually say hello to every one of you that took the time to join me. I see Paul C. I see Gerard. I see Kelly. I see Sven Larson, just chilling in the house from the West Coast. Great to see you, my friend. Gina, so glad you can join me. Chris Trock is here. Osada, good to see you, my friend. I can't wait to get your chocolates. I'm going to enjoy them. Let's see, who else did I miss? I know there were other people here. Cinnamon Girl was here. I don't know if she was here. I hope she comes back. Mike F, good to see you. Good to see Carmela. Tommy Stiggs. Thank you. What a nice little crew on a Friday evening. So good to see you guys. Yeah, just chilling. I just said that. It's been a while since I've done one of these, so I'm happy to be back doing these. I don't know if I'm going to commit to do them every Friday, though. Like I said, it's got to be a story that I know and that I like doing. I don't just do them. I don't want to struggle because then they won't be worth listening to. You know, it's got to be something that I like, a story that I like. Therefore, you guys will hopefully like it. But no drink tonight, just seltzer. I traditionally would have an old fashioned, but I don't feel like it tonight. So just keeping my whistle wet with the seltzer tonight. So anyway, before we get started, let me do my lighting of the candles, because we can't have a ghost story without candlelight, right? Let me shut this light off. There we go. Very good. There we go. Now that's better. My little buddy there. I think we named him Edgar back in the day when we first got him. So let's get started. Yeah, Cinnamon, your first time. I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you're here. I hope you enjoy them. This one's pretty short, so this isn't going to be a long one. It's pretty short. I've told some pretty long ones, but this one's not that involved. But in order to tell you, or in order for you to understand and get the gist of this, I need to give you a little background. And some of you that are into history will know this. So this story revolves around the Battle of Gettysburg during the Civil War. And I'm sure anyone who knows anything about that understands that that battle was very significant. And it was considered by many to be the turning point in the Civil War, the high tide of the Confederacy. Confederacy is another example, or another analogy or a name they put on that, or tag they put on Gettysburg. It was when the first time in the war, and the last time, I guess, that the Confederates actually invaded the North, came into Pennsylvania, and an effort to get shoes, really, is really what the purpose was. Hello, Arm Distance. Good to see you. Adam, good to see you, my friend. Exactly, Gerard. July 1st to the 3rd of 1863. And the whole purpose was to invade, to capture a shoe factory because they were hurting for shoes. Lee's army needed shoes. And that was one of the major goals here, to get that get supplies. The Confederacy really needed supplies. So anyway, that brings us to Gettysburg. And as Gerard says, it takes place. Hi, TT. Good to see you. I hope you're feeling much better. And thank you for coming in. The battle begins on July 1st, 1863. And I don't know if anyone's ever been there. I've been to the battlefield. It's quite an experience. I've never been there when there's a reenactment. That's what I'd love to see it. But just being there, you get a feeling of the place. You get a feeling of the magnificence of the history that took place there, and all the lives that were lost. A tremendous amount of lives lost. So it makes sense that there would be ghost activity there or supernatural activity in of any places. It's probably going to happen there because of all the human death and suffering that took place. But anyway. July 1st, 1863. So, as anyone who knows about military at the time knows, that flanking maneuvers were very important. So, what you were looking at this time, you see the Union is there first. The Confederacy arrives. Now, the Confederacy begins to have a series of charges against the Union line. And what they really need to do is they need to flank the Union line. That's their only hope of winning this battle is to flank the Union. And many say that if they were successful in doing this, the Union line would have crumbled. And flanking means a maneuver to the right, to the side of a line, of a military line. The Union line would have crumbled. And if the Union line crumbled, that would have been basically the end of the Union. In fact, some believe that the Union may have sued for peace at that point, saying that we can't fight on anymore. We don't have the means to fight on anymore. You can have your Confederacy. So who knows? I mean, those are speculations. But the point is, it was a very dire point in history, a very dire point in American history. It was a turning point. It could have been totally different based on what went on there. So that first day, there's a battle going on. It starts that July 1st, 1863. And the Confederates are trying to flank. And there's constant battles going back and forth and charges. Now, July 1st, the Union successfully repels all of the Confederate charges that day. So it's a success that first day. July 2nd comes, and it's not that easy. It gets a little bit harder. Fresher troops arrive from the Confederate side, and the charges continue. The artillery continues. It gets more difficult. Heavy casualties on both sides really, really start to pile up. And in the course of this, the Union figures out something it's very horrifying to them. Little Round Top, which is the highest point on the battlefield, is not occupied by them. And it's very crucial, especially in this type of warfare, that you control the high ground. So a panic runs through the Union lines. We need to get people up to that Little Round Top and defend it, because if the Confederates take it, they'll be able to bring artillery up there and they will pummel us from there. The only people that were on Little Round Top was a signaling crew. Basically, the Union forces were using it to signaling different parts of the Union line what they wanted to do. That's all that was there. So it was prime. They couldn't defend themselves. They were just a signaling crew. It was a prime target for the Confederacy. So the Union rushes to get a regiment up there. And the regiment that's picked is the 20th of Maine. And it's led by a man by the name of Chamberlain, who I think was a school teacher. He was a school teacher that volunteered for the war. Not a military expert at all. Not a career soldier. But anyway, so they get there just moments before the Confederates do. So Chamberlain's people get there. His regiment gets there just moments before. And the brigade commander tells Chamberlain, and these are his exact words, and I wrote them down, that hold the ground at all hazard, because it was obvious that if this fell, that was the end. That was the end of this battle. So as they're taking up positions, they begin to incur artillery. The Confederates see that they've lost the race to Little Round Top, so they start firing cannons and trying to bombard the Union people on top of that. And as they're doing this, they're setting up their lines of defense under artillery fire. And in addition to the artillery fire, there's a charge. There's basically an immediate charge by the Confederates on Chamberlain's line. And it starts from the right side and it goes all the way to the left. Now, remember, the left side is the most vulnerable. That's the side that they really have to worry about, because if the Confederates get around that, they're in big trouble. So, while this is happening, Chamberlain also noticed, while this battle is happening, and the fighting is pretty intense, that in the valley, they can see in the valley that fresh Confederate troops are forming to form a charge. And that charge was going to be to the far left. Now, remember, this current battle is across the Union line. The Confederates, this Confederate group that's massing, its goal is to come around and bash the left in and hopefully collapse the entire line. So this is dire straits for the Union at this point. They need to figure out a way to prevent that from happening. So Chamberlain issues an order to bend his line in a sharp angle. The left side of his line bends in a sharp angle. So instead of like this, it kind of bends in. It comes in like this in order to meet the charge head on. So he spreads it out more, spreads out his angle even more and thinner. So this is a thin Union line at this point. And of course, the charge comes from the Confederates. I just want to make sure I want to make sure I hit every point on this because it's important for the story's sake. So the charge comes. Now the Union and Confederates are battling back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And the line is kind of turning, it's bending and coming back, much like a wave, kind of like a tidal wave. It comes in, the Confederates make advances, the Union pushes them back and it bends in back. So it's kind of like a wave going back and forth while this is going on. And there's heavy losses on both sides. Now, this continues for the most of the day. And then by this point, the left side of the Union line has taken about half of itself in casualties, and it's running low on ammunition. It's exhausted. It's outnumbered. They see another mass of Confederate troops massing. Now, Chamberlain is at his wit's end. He states in his journal, he writes how he thought this was the end, that there was no way they were going to be able to repel a full-on assault. They didn't have ammunition. The only ammunition they had was from dead people. They were gathering up ammunition from dead soldiers in order to survive. They were just plumb out of it and exhausted. So what does he do? The official record is he has no choice. He orders his line to fix bayonets. Hold on a minute. I got one right here. Bayonet right here. Fix your bayonet on top of your gun because you're out of ammunition, and the entire line is going to charge the Confederates head on. Now that happens. That's the official record. And as a result of that, the Confederates are so overwhelmed and surprised that they throw down their weapons and surrender. And then, in fact, the backup Confederate group that was behind them as reinforcement sees the Confederate line collapsing and surrendering and basically turns and runs. So basically a miracle happens in the sense that it was a foregone conclusion that all logic said that the Union line was going to collapse and was going to fall. But because of Chamberlain's charge, it all reversed. So here comes the ghost part of the story, because after the battle takes place, there are many reports, and the reports come on both sides of the lines, from Confederates and Unions, that at a moment before the charge, a moment in time before the charge, there was a phantom rider that appeared along the Union line, and that this pale rider was dressed in blue, wearing a tri-cornered hat, just like this one, with coattails, waving a sword and rallying the Union troops forward to the point that the troops followed the directions of this rider and caused the charge to continue forward at points when it was going to waver. That as this rider ran along the Union line, those Union defenders who were so scared and ready to throw it in felt empowered and charged forward. So Chamberlain's call for a bayonet charge basically was pushed on by this rider who they described as wearing antique clothing, a tri-corner hat, and waving a sword. That's what the descriptions were. And that, in fact, there's Confederate accounts that they saw a Union rider, a Union officer. They termed it a Union officer that they targeted and tried to shoot, but bullets had no effect on the rider. And that, they said, was part of the problem and why they panicked, because they saw this figure charging at them that they could not stop. Now, the Union folks' account of this now, and this is where it gets a little bit sketchy as to what could have happened here. Was there an actual rider on the field, and maybe these Confederates just missed him? There's no record of an officer on a horse being on Little Round Top. None whatsoever. There was none in the vicinity. So there was no actual rider there when that happened. No actual officer on a horse. Didn't happen. No record of it at all. But when asked to describe the rider, both Confederates and Union folks, Union soldiers who survived the battle and gave an account, said that the rider resembled, to the best of their knowledge, a painting of George Washington. Now, was that the spirit of George Washington that came forward at the time when the Union was at its blink, at the point of dissolution, that the ghost of George Washington interfered to the point to save the Union that he created on that battlefield? I don't know, but it gets a little bit even eerier when I tell you the next part of this. But this was such a real consideration that the Secretary of War, Stanton, ordered an investigation to find out who this rider was on the field of battle, because there were so many accounts of this happening that they wanted to get to the bottom of this and figure out what happened. And in fact, the officer he assigned to investigate the matter was a Colonel Pettinger, who he sent there from Washington to interview people who were in the battle. And he interviewed from generals down to privates, and recorded a lot of their accounts of what they saw. Now, none of this has ever been found. The only thing that they know, his reports, nothing of what he found was ever recorded anywhere. If it was lost, if it was destroyed, nobody knows. But it was never found. All that is documented is that the Secretary of War, Stanton, sent this officer to investigate, and that he did try to investigate this sighting. So was George Washington there? I don't know. Was his spirit there? I don't know. But the eerie part goes back to the fact that in George Washington's diary, and also documented by some of his officers at the time, in 1777 at Valley Forge, when the colonial army was at its breaking point and at dire straits, starving and freezing, and dealing with desertion and everything else, the possibility of the United States of America was at its bleakest point. It looked like it wasn't going to happen. it was in during that winter one night that George Washington documents that he had a vision in his tent alone one night, which which he described as, and I want to get this right, dark manifestations of black clouds, lightning, and light of 1,000 suns. And that it later on, that vision later on cleared to be, he saw a long line of blue wearing soldiers and a charge down a hill to victory. And that, he said, gave him the premonition that he would, or gave him the hope to carry on at that particular time when things were at its worst. So worse. So think about the eeriness of this. That could that have been a premonition of the Gettysburg incident? A long line and a charge by blue wearing soldiers at a darkest moment with cannons firing and everything else. Could that have been the connection to George Washington? And because of that, was there some type of eerie connection with his spirit that he appeared on the date of that battle in the future in order to ensure that the Union would not falter, that the Union would not dissolve? So it's pretty eerie when you, if you ask me, when you think about that. So basically, that's the story. That's the story. The Pale Rider of Little Round Top, or the Phantom Rider of Little Round Top, was it George Washington's spirit? And did it really have? Did that apparition change the course of that battle and the course of the war? Because if any military historian will tell you, after Gettysburg, it was all downhill for the Confederacy, and it could have gone the other way. So it's it sends chills up and down my spine when I think about it. It's really fascinating to me, and I'm always open to these things. So who knows? Who knows what could have really happened? But I highly recommend to anybody who's interested to go to Gettysburg if you can. It's a nice trip to look at the battlefields. The battlefields are preserved. They have monuments on all the different sites in the battlefields. Little Round Top has a monument. Big Round Top has a monument. They have where the major charge was, the major Confederates charge was. There's monuments there. It's an amazing place to go and see. I highly recommend that you do that. So let me see what's going on in the chat now that I told my story. So, oh, and then some new people have come in. Hey, Don McHugh, how are you? Stefano, good to see you, my friend. I see Yankees was here. Good to see you. Haven't seen you in a while, my friend. Good to see you. I saw Adam. Yes, TT. Yes, all these guys. Right. I said hello to you guys already. But thank you so much for being here. Yeah, so who knows? I mean, and I see Gerard saying see things. Yeah, that's true. Dehydration in a battle, you see things. Good point. But what about here's my only question with that is, do they all see the same thing? That's my only question. That's what gets me thinking. With multiple people on both lines of the battle describe something similar like that. That's the eerie part of it. And there's also the movie Gettysburg. I don't know if you ever saw that. If you ever saw it's a very long movie, but it's an excellent movie. It's a historically correct movie, Gettysburg. And you have I'm trying to think who was in it. There was a lot of stars in it, and it was either in the late 80s or not early 90s that it came out. It's a long movie. I think it's like 3.5 hours, something like that, because it's an actual account of the battle. And it's, if you're into history and you're into military stuff, I highly recommend viewing. Sam Elliott is in it. I'm trying to think who else was in it. A bunch of stars were in it. So it's worth checking out if you haven't seen that movie. And there's no George Washington apparition in it, so don't expect to see that. That's not in it. Oh, you know the director. Excellent, Gerard. That's awesome. Excellent. Martin Sheen. Yep, Martin Sheen is in it. You're right. And I forgot the guy that played Chamberlain. The guy that played Chamberlain was also famous actor. Um, but yeah, great movie. Great movie. Check it out if you can. If you have the if you have the patience too to watch the whole thing, it's it's a long movie. But you actually you've seen it in parts, I think. I mean, the best way to do is cut it in parts. That's how I've seen it. I actually went to the movies to see it, so I sat through the whole thing in the movies when it was out. Jeff Daniels, Chamberlain. Yes, yes. Thank you, Gerard. Excellent. Hey, Edwin, how are you? Thank you for jumping on. I appreciate it. So that's my story. A short one, but to me, a spine tingling one because the possibilities are very eerie, the connections over time, and also to me, something that I've always believed in is that this country was created with through divine intervention. I really do. I think that a lot of things happen in the historical timeline of this country that show that the higher power wanted it to succeed, and things like this kind of fold into that, and that's why I like them. But yeah, that was it for me. And I see people talking about Williamsburg. Williamsburg is an awesome place. I saw that too. I've been there many times. I love Williamsburg, and it never gets old. I can go there so many times. It's just it's beautiful, and it's so engrossing to me into the history. I feel the history come alive there, so it's something I really enjoy going to. Well, thank you, Gina. Yeah, I haven't been doing them that much, as you can see lately, because I need to have a story that I like. I don't want to just pump out stories that I'm not into. I got to have something from me, and wanting to like the story to tell it. So, but I was thinking about doing some original stories. So, totally fictional that I've created over the years. I've had them in my mind, and I haven't really put them to pen to paper. But I was thinking about doing that and sharing them on my channel too. So that might be something you see in the future. So everything that I've done to date has been stories that I've collected from other sources, other writers, or word of mouth stories, or legends and such, folklore and such. Nothing that I have actually created. So I'm just thinking about doing some of that in the future. So if you like that, hope you'll turn in and find out. 5,000. Wow, TT, that's awesome. 5,000 reenactors. That's got to be. They must have got every reenactor in the country involved in that. Thank you, Stefano. I appreciate that. I'm just doing my best, just doing what I like to do, and I'm glad you enjoy it, and that's why I do it. So, yeah. So that's it, really, guys. Any questions or anything you guys want to talk about? I'm happy to talk about it, but that's my story. Hey, Gianni, how are you? Good to see you, my friend. Thanks, Kelly. Johnny, you and your notifications are always a problem, I'll tell you. Um, the thumbnail's been up for a while, my friend. You can click on the thumbnail ahead of time so that you get a notification. As Tommy always says, click on those thumbnails. So try to get them up as soon as I can. Thank you, TT. Appreciate that. Yeah. So I don't know about next week. I'm not gonna commit to that yet. I don't know if I have a story, but if I do, I will get a thumbnail up as soon as I can. But of course, we have the Godfather show on Sunday, so please tune into that, and I think Tommy on Sunday evening about 8 o'clock, he is going to continue that series with Mo about the Tacetas. So I'm looking forward to that. He asked me to be available in case they had some legal questions, and I'm happy to do that. So maybe I'll see you guys there for that. So some good stuff happening on our little channels that associate with each other. uh, so Gianni, you say you literally don't get them for anyone. Even if you click on the thumbnail and say notify, you still don't get them? That's so weird. I don't know what to say to that. I don't have an answer for you on that. I don't know. Don McHugh getting feisty there. Leave the panini behind. Now, that's not nice, Don. Come on. But anyway, we're getting close to Christmas, guys. And anyone who's celebrating Hanukkah, happy Hanukkah tonight. I think is the second night of Hanukkah. So I want to say happy to those. Really excited for Christmas myself. I really enjoy it. I love the holidays. I love all the holidays. So I was thinking about doing a reading, one of my book readings, my audiobooks on Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol, the original text. I was thinking about doing that maybe in the next week or so and get that up for you guys to listen to. I don't know if you guys enjoy the original writings of Dickens, but I do. The language is wonderful. You know, sometimes you need to have a dictionary with you, which I think is the fun part. You know, you see words in there that you don't necessarily know or that are outdated, they're not used anymore. And the fun part is looking them up. I mean, that's me. I'm weird. I like to do that stuff, but I do enjoy it. And the language to me is lyrical. I love the language, the way those writers, Dickens, Washington Irving, Washington Irving, Washington Irving's language is even more, you know, more in harder to understand at times because of all the flowery and dated language that he uses. But I still love it. You know, the Legend of Sleepy Hollow. I love the language in that. If you ever read the original version, it's the language actually jumps out at you. The way he describes things, it comes to life in your imagination as you read it. So I would recommend you doing that if you have the inkling to do that. But I want to do the and I have to admit I tried to watch the Legend of Sleepy Hollow, and then things got in the way, and I was going to record that. I started recording some of that, just reading the text, but something got in the way, and I didn't get to finish it in time for Halloween, so I just kind of aborted it. So that's maybe something for the future. I'll continue that and finish that up and get that up. But I'd really like to do it if I can do the Dickens Christmas Carol because it's one of my favorite stories of all times. And I'd love to put that up as a writing for you guys to just sit back, relax, and listen to as a Christmas gift from me to you guys. I hope you, if I could do that, I hope you will enjoy it. Let's see what's going on. What are you guys talking about here? The Morgan Library. Where's the Morgan Library, Gina? I don't. Where would it be? The Morgan Library. A live reading of the Christmas Carol. Yeah. Oh, Paul. Yeah. Have a good evening, Paul. Thank you for stopping by. Really appreciate it. Oh, New York City. Okay. Yeah, I don't know. I hope they still do something like that. I mean, we really need to get in touch with that culture again. I know it's kind of faded out, but that's our culture. That's our collective culture, stuff like that. You know, and I know Dickens was English, but it's still a link to our culture, and it's something that the modern thinking sometimes is that everything old is not good. I think the opposite. I think the old things are better. And that's just me, call me an old fogey or call me whatever you want. I think the old writings, the old literature, the old way of approaching things was better. It was classier. It took more intelligence. It took more, I don't know, more thinking to be involved with too. So that's me. Yes, refined, Gerard. That's a good word. Refine. People took time to do things right. People took time. They put more effort into things. It wasn't this uh, megabyte culture where everything pumps out in a blink of an eye, and then they go on to something else. When you read those masterpieces, you have to dedicate time where you sit back and you absorb it and you take the time to learn what's in it. And to me, that's an amazing thing to do. And I try to instill that in my kids. I don't know if they will always go for it, but sometimes they do. So, and I don't blame them because considering what they're exposed to from day in and day out in this culture of ours these days. But yes, Edgar Allan Poe, Shelley, absolutely, Gerard, absolutely great. Um, what's another one that I love? Last of the Mohegans, an amazing, amazing book. I don't think I've ever finished it. I've tried reading it several times because it's so intense, but I've never finished it. But I've enjoyed all the times that I've tried to read the entire thing. And it no movie does justice to the book itself. In that particular book's case, no movie that I've seen to date does justice to it. The 1996 one was an excellent movie, but it doesn't do justice to the book. It really doesn't. So, right, visualization, imagination, exactly, Gerard. Yes, that's exactly what it requires. Stefano, oh, shopping, and thank goodness for Amazon. Yeah, I tell you, yeah, but I tell you, shopping through Amazon is very, very easy, right? So you got to be a fool not to take advantage of it. But I do miss trips to the bookstore. I loved going trips to the bookstore and just browsing and seeing what books were on sale, uh, leafing through them and picking out one and taking it home and reading it that day. So I do miss that. You can't find many bookstores anymore, but Chaucer, yes, yes, Chaucer's, yes, Chaucer, yep. Canterbury Tales, I guess, was his the major work there. Old English, yeah, Old English. I mean, well, let's put it this way: Old English is rough enough. Can you imagine? Like Shakespeare is brutal. Shakespeare really is brutal, like that. And I enjoy watching Shakespearean plays. The reading actual Shakespeare, man, that is tough stuff. That's tough stuff. My favorite store, Hickory Farms for the samples. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. That's why they have a what, McHugh? That's why they have a ebooks. Oh, ebooks. Oh. Well, just listening to Shakespeare is tough, interpreting what's being said. So the play itself makes sense because you can guess what's going on because you're watching what's going on as things are said. You can learn that way. But just reading out the script or listening to the ebook, it's tough. It's really tough to follow what's going on. Yeah, Gianni. Johnny says she never read many classics. English not being the first language, a really hard time interpreting anything. Took me a long time. Yeah, well, look, I can understand that. If it's English is your second language, I mean, it's English is my first language, and it's tough for me. It really is. It's tough. I mean, that's the point, though. The point is that I enjoy the task, or I enjoy the challenge of doing it. It's an activity for me that I'm comfortable. It relaxes me. I enjoy doing that. Reading through a classic, stopping, marking the page with the bookmark, and looking up a word that I've never seen before. or that I don't understand how it's been used in that sentence. I enjoy doing that. That to me, that's fun. Now people might think I'm crazy, but I do enjoy that. Oh, that's interesting, Gerard. 0.75 speed. Huh, okay. I've never tried that. Oh, you're welcome, Carm. I appreciate you being here and listening. I really do. And Gerard, I agree. Shakespeare, that's my whole point. Shakespeare is a bit much, but some of the stories are amazing. Like Hamlet's an amazing story. But you wouldn't get it if you just read it outright. You wouldn't get it. Uh, Mel Gibson did an amazing job of Hamlet. If you ever get to see that movie, and it uses the actual script, but it's an amazing job. You understand everything that's going on in it. Even if you don't understand all the words, you understand exactly what's going on. He did an amazing job. That is a class A movie. I recommend you see that. And it's never on TV, of course. I can never find it on TV, but that's the route to go for Hamlet if you ever want to know that. Donnie's on fire. You drop back to 7.75 speed. Yes. Oh, and Gina doesn't like the random shopping. I don't. Well, I don't. But all the times that I've gone to the mall, like I said, even as a kid when we went to the mall in high school and stuff, I'd go to three places: the bookstore, the record store, and the arcade, and then the food court. So four places. That's all I would ever do. I wouldn't wander around to any of the stores. That's why I went to the mall for those four places. So I was not a big shopper either. You could drop this show to 0.75 feet. Okay. And when that happens, does the voice change? Does the voice slow down? I guess the voice slows down too. Probably gets deeper because it's slowing down. I don't know. Or maybe that's a subtle enough change that you don't see that. I'll have to try it for myself, figure it out. Yeah. Yep. Arm distance does 80% of his shopping online. Yeah. I think that's I think most people do. Most people do. I mean, it really is a godsend when you think about that. Like if you don't know what to get or you don't know where to go to get something, usually you can find it and you can just sit back, order, and eventually it's going to get to you. So, you know, that is one of the positives, I guess. It's negative. Then I think the positives outweigh the negatives there. A lot of negatives come from the internet. A lot of negatives come from social media and those developments, without a doubt. I think the negatives outweigh the positives, in my personal and humble opinion. But the Amazon concept is a positive in my, it is. I can't see how you could say it's a negative. Yeah, it's so much more efficient. TT, you're right. I mean, I'm sorry, Gina, you're right. It's so much more efficient. I will never go to a mall just to shop. I mean, you can't even find malls anymore, Gerard. I mean, there's a few, but it's not like it used to be. You go to the local big malls, they're empty. The stores aren't in there anymore. They've been put out by Amazon. And a lot of people say the pandemic, but it was going to happen anyway, regardless of the pandemic, because everybody's going to Amazon. Who needs to go to the mall? You don't need to. So anyway, that's my story for tonight. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'm happy to talk. I'm glad that I get to spend some time with you guys and chat and shoot the breeze, as they say. And I expressed my love of classic books and readings. I hope you share that with me. Trying to think. Oh, here we go. Let me see what I got here. Just right here. I have right here. Last of the Mohegans, right here. By James Fillmore Cooper. Great book. And as you can see, there is a bookmark in it because I've never finished it. And I started up and I continue, but I've never finished it. So before I die, that's my goal, is to finish this book in its entirety. Never have done it, but I will. That's my goal. Here we have complete works of William Shakespeare right here. Don't understand a tenth of it, but still good stuff. And here we have Legend of Sleepy Hollow, Washington Irving, and Washington Irving, other stories from Washington Irving as well in here. You know, it's a thick book. A lot of stories from Washington Irving that I never knew existed. I never knew, because you only hear about the Legend of Sleepy Hollow. So good stuff there. And of course, we all grew up with these Grimm's fairy tales. Got to have that in the collection, you know. So anyway, you got to see a little bit of my library there. I hope everyone has a wonderful evening. Thank you so much for joining me. Hope you enjoyed the story. Hit the like button if you did. It's helpful. I think it's helpful. You know, we always say it's helpful. Who the heck knows? I think it's helpful. But in terms of Friday Night Ghost Stories, I want to thank you for joining me. And may you stay. Wait a minute, hold on. What's going on here with my? Here we go. As I always say, I say God bless. Thank you for joining, and stay scared. Right? At least that's what I say. So, see you later.